Welcome. I'm your host, Dustin. We're here for another installment of our Within the Barrens, and today we have who I think is, a very highly regarded cult classic creator, Frank Farrell. This has been kind of, a work in progress over the last month, I want to say, but it's awesome to have you on, man. How you doing?
Thank you so much. I'm doing fine. I'm doing great. You caught me in the middle of writing, which these days is what anybody would catch me in the middle of. So I do like to pause every now and then and do an interview.
Yeah, and
But thank you for having me on. I appreciate it.
yeah,
And you seem to.
I'm
I checked
super.
out like other stuff you've done. You seem to have gotten some pretty reasonable interviews in the past.
Yeah, thank you. I have been I've been trying to, I usually have my co-host with me, but with the interviews it's a little bit harder to have him on just because his work schedule is
Right.
ridiculous. So it's like I completely understand if you can't make these. So yeah, we've been doing these interviews for only about 2 or 3 months, and it's like every week we have so many people like, yeah, I want to come on, let's do it. And I've been trying to get you on for a while, but like a lot of like life things have been happening and whatnot, and scheduling issues on my end, which
And I must have
sucks,
fucked up at least once.
yeah. So it's awesome to finally have you on, and we can pick
Thank
your
you.
brain a little bit, and you can kind of go and tell your side of, the
I thank you
story.
so much for having me. As I told you just a moment before we began here, it's like I'm more than anybody. I'm still trying to get used to the fact that I have some degree of fame and apparent celebrity now that for most of my life and career I did not have. Partially because our film Spookies was sort of in like suspended animation of
Yeah,
sorts for decades.
and we're definitely gonna be talking about that, a lot today, and also street trash, and that we have the street trash remake coming. So I wanted to,
Amazing, yeah.
yeah, like I wanted to kind of pick your brain on that a little bit. But let's start at the beginning, Frank. I always like to kind of take it back with everybody. Like, what made you want to become like a writer or a screenwriter or director, producer? Like, what like I don't know sparked that in you when you were younger?
From like I mean, my earliest memories of grade school are being told I had like that I could write, that I was a good writer. So I guess I pursued that, hearing that to some extent. But what came along a bit later was my interest in film, which was really what sort of flared my interest in creativity more than almost anything. And that I mean, I'm trying to remember now. I'm thinking like somewhere around the age of 11 or 12, and realize like back then, I mean, the selection of what there was and what you could see was very different.
Yeah.
So my learning, my course in film was really, mostly older films from like the 60s and back. And I became a big fan of those films. And I like, quite a lot of older directors. I like, and I tend to, and it also helped me to develop an appreciation for different types of films. I mean, I feel so many people, and this goes even for a lot of so-called movie fans, horror fans. They grew up at a certain time, they saw certain movies, and everything they're interested in is just centered around like 10 to 20 years of when they got excited about something and now they're nostalgic about it.
Yeah.
And I think they're missing like so much by doing that.
Yeah, I do agree on that, and like I'm definitely one of those people who really just like nestled in like a certain time period. I had been like reaching out and like doing way more other things and trying to get into other genres like way back when, like in like the 30s even. Like I love black and white films, so that's why I like kind of going back to those and like seeing how things were made
Yeah,
back then.
I've always been attracted to black and white. I just feel there are feelings and emotions you can get with black and white that you really can't get in color.
Yeah, exactly. And I mean, there are directors who try to do black and white now, but I always feel like everybody's really afraid to do that because I think it's not gonna go over as well as color. But
A lot of times, I've noticed in recent years more films that they're not really exactly black and white, but you can see that they've dimmed down the color quite a lot,
yeah,
and so it's maybe they look sort of tinted, or in some cases it's black and white, and then there's occasionally you notice a color or something.
yeah,
But I think that's true. I think as opposed to it's easier to just say, all right, well, here's what we're going to do. and release the film as a color film, even though there may be less color than some audiences are used to. And maybe that's a way to get them to adapt, and
Yeah.
not and maybe the word is really the stigma more than anything else.
Yeah, and yeah, I do agree on that. And I wish there was more black and white out there. I really do, because I love the aesthetic. There was actually a film that I did see that came out not that long ago called Ghost Waits. That's on Shudder right now. That's a horror film,
Hmm.
and we just talked to the director about that, and it's black and white, and it's a beautiful film. It is.
Right.
It's so good. The writing on it is really good too. But I love the aesthetic of black and white. I don't know exactly what it is, but I get drawn to it way more than color.
I just think contrast, the starker contrast, even in daytime scenes, just your brain reacts differently to it.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? You're extremely aware that it's not realistic because it's not in color, but you're having an emotional reaction to it. I mean, to me, it's bizarre that because for a long time, into even the 70s, films were frequently black and white, and nobody made a big deal out of it or thought
Yep.
anything lesser or more of the films. But that seems to have faded, out of the mainstream filmmaking scene at this point, for the most part. Um, I don't know what to say about it. I think it's unfortunate because there are a lot of people who will, the moment they see a film is in black and white, will like turn their eyes away.
Yeah, it's really sad to see that. And I wish it wasn't that way, but times have changed and whatnot. And we have all these like really big budget movies, like all the Marvel movies, which I think are just they're too dry for me.
Too dry. That's interesting.
Yeah, I'm just it's
Dry in what way? Because right now, like the new Thor movie is getting a lot of criticism for being too funny,
yeah.
supposedly.
I think it's just because I've seen so many superhero movies that it just
Yeah.
it's like a dried well with me. It's like I can only see so much of it. And you think I would say the same thing with horror, but like there's just so much diversity within horror because it pulls from so many
Well,
other.
I come as a big comic book fan of,
Yeah.
but I was always more interested in comics of like almost every variety as opposed to just superheroes. I mean, superheroes became the thing in this country starting in like the 1930s. Okay, but at the same time, all kinds of comics were popular for a long time, and then it just narrowed more and more into until superheroes really just became the genre. But I always I if I liked superhero stories, it was frequently just, I mean, there were certain characters, I guess, maybe that appealed to me.
Yes.
But I think a big part of it for me was like certain artists. So I would have liked probably anything they decided to draw.
Yeah.
And I think it's unfortunate. I mean, the thing is, I mean, like my favorite comic book artist is Will Eisner, if you know who Will Eisner is.
Yep.
And I like, and he real essentially worked in black and white. He did color comics, but his original artwork in black and white is obviously very designed for black and
Hmm.
white. Um, and I think he's like also one of these people who expanded the language of comic books like enormously. He was the first to really think of things in such visual terms and to break scenes up certain ways. Um, but that's a large part of what I'm interested in filmmaking, is people taking the medium and doing interesting things with it. Just like a
Exactly.
writer may have a style that's unique and can make you engaged and intrigued because they have this style. Um, I'm one of my pet theories is you always hear that like the most important thing in a movie is the story.
Yeah.
No, it's not.
Yeah. Yeah.
The most important thing is how well the story is told.
Yeah. Yes. That is
I
very
guarantee
true.
you, because you see the same stories over and over again. Almost any movie, the next movie you see is going to be a variation on some other story, but it may be done in a way that like you get totally intrigued and turned on by, and you see something differently, and the person who created it tried to do something in a different way. Um, I like people to take this medium, which I think you can do almost anything you can think of with, and
Yeah.
do something with it. I get a lot of contemporary films. I get bored visually. Uh, I always watch trailers, even if the movie's if I won't see the movie, I'll still watch the trailer.
Okay.
And I hate it when I watch like a dozen trailers in a row, and like I don't even remember what they were because like nine of them all seem to be the same movie.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Or like if like a movie releases like multiple trailers are all like essentially the same thing, so you're like, what's the point? You know. And honestly, a lot of trailers nowadays spoil too much, I think, of the film.
That's
Uh,
been going on for a long time, actually.
yeah, I've just been recently realizing it now. Maybe it's because there's just so many other people pointing it out as well. But yeah, I've been trying not to watch trailers as of late because I don't know if it's
Right? I know some people do that. I don't really, unless it's a movie that the story is something that I think is going to be interesting in a way that I want to be surprised.
mm,
Um, I'm not like, I'm like I said, I don't feel the story is so much the thing is how is the story told? What about it is going to be unique to this particular film?
exactly. And since we're on the topic of stories, let's go and talk a little bit about Spookies and how that got like turned upside down, like pretty much from underneath your feet
Um,
and everybody else. So I
yeah,
want
I
to
mean, I don't know
hear.
how much you know. I'm glad you know at least something because I frequently have people who talk to me who have literally no concept of anything that went on with that film behind the scenes, and that's really like at least half the story. Um, I mean, that was at a time I had two partners, Tom Doran, Brendan Faulkner.
Yep.
Uh, Tom has since passed away, and Brendan is still here, but he and Tom co-directed Spookies, and we wrote it, the three of us together. I was the central producer, and that was sort of the culmination of several years of us having met in college. All wanted to make films, all had a real love for horror and related genres, and so we spent like a number of years trying, with essentially projects that got launched and crashed, which is I think what most filmmakers do. I think we were ambitious, but we were also naive. There
Hmm.
definitely weren't as many resources and easy ways to get information and ways to do things that you have now. I mean, it's like, I mean, to tell the truth, my whole life changed with the internet just because I was used to it for doing anything. It's like if I wrote a script, all right, I have to go to the library, and I'm probably going to spend like 100 hours researching this in the library
Oh
minimum,
wow.
that kind of thing. I mean,
Yeah.
I mean, I used to take trips into. I lived like 40, 50 miles from New York City, and I'd take trips to go to the New York Public Library where they had like archives of all kinds of amazing stuff. And but at that time, that was like literally the only resource. Now I just have to come up with something I want to know more about, and I'll know more about it almost instantly.
Yeah. That is a good thing about the internet, but the internet can also be, uh, kind of mean. you know.
Well, it is. It's unfortunate. I mean, look, for me, the disappointing thing about the internet is most people really don't even take advantage of what they have at their fingertips here. I mean, they don't. Their interest isn't broad enough. They're not intellectually curious enough. Whatever it is,
Hmm.
it's they don't. And it's not like you have to like go out there online and get into everything, but
Yeah, exactly.
all you're doing is like doing your Facebook account and watching some YouTube videos or whatever. I mean, you're not taking any advantage of this.
Yeah. And that is kind of true. Even on my end, like I try to do like a lot of research and stuff when I'm like really curious about something, but I don't know if it's just because most people are just really lazy nowadays because they have so much stuff given to them everywhere compared
I
back
think that's
to.
part of it. I think part of it is that, but it's also overstimulation
Yeah.
because it's like, when I was a kid, when I first developed certain interests, just to get like a book about a subject that you liked was an amazing thing, and you treasured this things like incredibly, and you'd look at the pictures again and again because there was nothing else. And now it's like I can come up, like I said, anything that I want to experience, I can experience quickly.
Yeah.
Um, but for a creative person, I think it's really valuable.
Oh, for
Um,
sure. Oh yeah.
I'm not gonna diss the internet,
Yeah.
but I do think that, but I think uh, I think all technology makes people more complacent.
I agree. I agree. For
The
sure.
same. What's happened with film technology is I can now, go out with my phone in the middle of the night with just like street lights and get an amazing image,
Yeah.
and not have to be, I could probably just shoot a scene like that without even having to worry about additional lights. I mean, you'd want to probably do that if you wanted a more professional
Yeah.
product, but you are getting results simply and easily that you could never have gotten at one time. And a lot of contemporary films, even though I still see films that I think look great visually, the filmmaking is fantastic. I see plenty of stuff that just looks like, somebody's family shot it or something.
Yeah. There was actually a movie that came out not that long ago, called Threshold, that was all filmed on an iPhone. That was really really
I'm not
good too.
against that, though. I'm not against that.
Yeah.
Was that one of the Steve Soderbergh movies? Do you know?
I forget who directed it. I know it premiered at
Steve
a.
Soderbergh made some statement a year or two ago that he only wanted to shoot with an iPhone.
Yeah, I mean, hey, you can do it. Anybody can do it. You have it right at your hands. I mean, everybody has a phone nowadays. And that's a good thing, and it could also be a bad thing. But I think if anybody has any kind of creativity in them, and they want to explore on it, try doing it with your phone before start going and buying all this like
Oh yeah, yeah. I
equipment.
mean, you could like literally just take it out of your pocket
Yeah,
and get know how if you know how to compose shots and you know how to tell a story, you can start making a good film with almost no crew, no equipment, and not much more than your mind.
yeah, exactly. Um, and like this obviously brings back to like Spookies back then. Like it was, well, you started filming I believe in '84, I think, if I remember correctly, or was
We had
writing in
a
'84.
yeah, I mean, because like we the three of us were, we had started several projects. We wrote, a fair number of scripts. We kept trying to, we'd get a little money together, mostly out of our own pockets, and start making a promo short to try
Yeah,
and promote the thing, etc. And what would frequently happen, as I think happens to low budget filmmakers all the time, suddenly something changes and another project becomes more viable and attractive, and so you have to sort of drop one thing and
yeah.
just immediately get into the other one. And in this case, we had a project which was about a demon in a house, and like just like the one in Spookies,
Yeah.
that we thought was good, and and the effects in that were primarily this fairly elaborate, full body suit demon costume, and we thought to contain it to that made relative sense because we wouldn't get a little bit out of control with more than we could handle. And on Spookies, we were sort of pressed into taking the opposite tack that our backer wanted, an Evil Dead ripoff, essentially. He
Oh
wanted
yeah.
lots of, he didn't even say monsters. He just went, I want things popping out of closets, and they go into the living room and there's a ghost, and then they go into the basement and there's a gorilla, and things like that.
Yeah. Yeah, that must have been really frustrating though, because you guys were doing all this work on what was originally going to be called was Twisted Souls, before it got moved over
Right.
to Eugenie and the crew over there, and kind of added all the other scenes. Um, but I was thinking, like, if you could go back and you could remake Spookies or Twisted Souls that the way you wanted to, would you?
No.
No. You're just like,
I
nope,
would
I'm
probably
over.
choose to, and I think my partners feel the same way. I think we would have probably chosen to do one of our other projects,
Okay.
or I mean, or if I actually had if I could go back now, I would probably take one of my scripts from now and go back and make
Okay.
it, and it would
Okay.
be even more innovative than ever. Uh, but the thing is, we had an opportunity to make a film. We had to essentially do what the person with the money wanted. This
Yep.
is all very typical stuff. Even the biggest films basically have these same rules that you have to, like, to some, no matter who you are, with a handful of people who are maybe an exception, you just have to do what they need you to do. And then you can work, do your own thing and your creativity and your style within that, but you don't want to fuck the people
Yeah,
that are
exactly.
financing your film. Um, in the case of Spookies, it was, as far as the story went, we literally, it was literally like we came to the conclusion that we needed to do something where there was a monster every 10 minutes roughly
Yeah.
of some sort, and we managed to do that, and I thought we came up with some very interesting, different monsters that you might not always expect to see in this type of a film. And I think and the thing is also, I mean, he wanted, like I said, he wanted an Evil Dead clone, and so he's like, oh, and I want teenagers to do this. And our first thing was, we don't want to do a film with teenagers.
Hmm.
Every film like this has got teenagers in it,
Yeah.
and I made the point then, and I'll make it again now, that as a teenager, as a kid up to now, I never favored movies that had teenagers as protagonists necessarily. In fact, most kids, I think, want to be an adult. So
Yeah.
there's no reason that they can't enjoy and get into movies with adult characters.
Yeah. Yeah, I can agree on that one. I think I would rather be an adult in a movie instead of a teenager. They could just do more stuff. Um,
Right. I mean,
and-
what's happened now, this is another way that I think there's less effort expended to some extent. That a lot of filmmakers, especially people who love horror movies, are essentially making copies of the kind of horror movies they love, or in some
yeah.
cases, almost verbatim the exact movies that they love. And they're sticking within a very narrow range of cliches and characters and types of stories. And I was bored. I mean, just I got bored with slasher movies back in the '80s because I feel it's a very similar genre. I mean, they really. I mean, after Halloween, I mean, almost everything was somewhat taken from Halloween,
Yeah, for
and
sure.
and I think it's a genre that can still be good and still be fresh. But when you have something that's copied endlessly just for financial reasons, that basically, I think you wind up with a lesser product.
Hmm.
But then there are people who just love these movies. All they have to have is a killer.
Yeah.
That's the only requirement. Um, so I guess stuff like that. I need the movie to be good. There's got to be something about it beyond that, because that premise, it puts me to sleep basically.
Yeah, I'm a huge slasher fan, but I do agree that it does need to be fresh. You need to, kind of not really reinvent the wheel, but just add something with flavor on it to, add something to it. Because I'm a huge Halloween '78 fan. Like I
Right.
have so much stuff from them. But I think I've been talking to, other fellow horror fans and even like directors and stuff. But I really do think um, that we're going through like a horror renaissance almost in a sense because of
Well,
all of the creativity that's kind of coming
we
through right
are
now.
for many reasons, and horror has resurged in the mainstream
Yeah.
more or less, for both movies and more than ever for television shows.
Yeah.
Uh, and then beyond that, there's the whole micro budget scene of people making movies for as little as movies can be made for, that can get out there and get released, and people can find them and see them. And there's that's a big part of that resurgence, where I think you've got a lot of people who are out there making movies that they sort of know they're not going to make a profit on, because they cannot get the kind of distribution, or in many cases the movies are very are not the greatest movies for one reason or another. They may only have a limited audience, but I think it's great that people can feel free to do that now. And if you're not talented, okay. If you're a genius, all the better.
Yeah. And that that really kind of always comes back to you too, and like other um, fellow cult classic film directors or writers, is that it's also bringing your movies back to life. Like Spookies was on Joe Bob, like on Shutter. So that must have been
I have yet to meet
huge.
Joe Bob, but I am very grateful to him, because he put both Spookies and Street Trash
Yeah.
on the last drive-in. Right, both got terrific reactions. To my knowledge, they were the first two movies he put out on the VHS editions of his show that he started to put out.
Yeah.
Um, he uh, he did a special segment on my scene in Street Trash on the Street Trash episode.
Oh yeah.
Uh, so I feel like honored, and it's also he also made me with he did a recent they came out with a record album recently, like a vinyl, with a cover that was like a redo of like the Sergeant Pepper's Lonely Hearts
Yeah.
Club
Yep.
album, right, with monsters, right? And damn, there were there was, I think, one, possibly two characters from Street Trash, and again also two or three characters from Spookies. It was like, not just representation with one, but this took some thought.
Oh yeah, and it's a beautiful piece of art too, and like and also with the episodes that he did and all the information that he pulled from it, um, must have been very enlightening for you too, being like, okay, so other people do know what happened with this. They know that it kind of went through a lot of stuff. Street Trash was kind of the same way, but not so much with Spookies. Spookies was the one that like
Well,
really got a
Street
hold.
Trash, my
Yeah,
experience was such a better experience.
yeah,
Partially because there was nothing but enthusiasm and encouragement to just make the best movie we could possibly make. There was nobody sort of coming from the wrong place and demanding that things had to be done a certain
hmm
way. And it was a great experience. It was like, it allowed everyone on it, especially the director Jimmy Muro, the first film, 19 years old, to
yeah. That's
learn a lot,
crazy to
but to
me.
also have access to a professional crew and everything else. And I still feel proud about Street Trash. I mean,
It's a
I
great
feel
film.
Spookies, I think, would have been like okay, it would have been good, but I feel Street Trash, was able to get completed with creative control intact. And I still think it's not only a film that's lasted, but I think I've always thought it was just like a well-made, low-budget film, like way above average.
It is, and it's a crazy plot. There's a bunch of crazy stuff that happens to it. I mean, like you kick around your dick and everything. Like, it's so
Yeah.
funny, and the toilet scene is great. I mean, and Viper, like everybody is like when they see that they're like Street Trash. So
Mhm.
there's so much to that movie that everybody like pulls
Well,
to.
it's amazing because I think the editor did a really nice job of like retaining as much of what we did as possible.
Yeah.
Uh, and I think it's like one of these movies that there's barely a moment where it takes a breath long enough for you to like sort of like relax. Even it's like the minute something else ends, something else is introduced, and you're off on some other tangent. And I think I like movies like that personally.
Me too. Me too. I always like being engaged and not really having a breath. I always want to be like, "Wow, that was nuts! Oh my god, that was really nuts!" And you're like, "Wait, what just happened?" I love stuff like that, and Street Trash is definitely that kind of film.
Yeah,
Um,
I mean, I feel very lucky to have been involved in the making of between Street Trash and Spookies, uh, two low budget films that are still as popular, if not more popular, than they ever were.
yeah, and it's only gonna grow from here on. Like you are gonna
I know
be.
it's so weird.
It's I don't know. Us horror fans, we always try to find those things that no one likes, and then once we start liking them, everybody starts liking them, and then you're like, wow. So I did make something that people really, really liked. It just took a while for it to find its
Well, for
audience.
me, it took like 30 years to figure it out.
Yeah, and
But I mean, a huge part of that was simply that after its initial VHS release in the U.S. in like 85 to 86, roughly, it was never on video again in the United States until 2019.
yeah, that's nuts. And it's only growing. And even with the remake of Street Trash that's coming out, I wanted to ask you: Are you doing anything with Ryan on that? Is there
I
any?
am in touch with them. I've spoken with Justin Martell, who is a guy who's involved with various things on the horror scene, who I just met recently. I am like so thrilled that I like his film Fried Barry
Yes.
because when I heard this is going to be the guy, I was like, all right, this I can get behind. This guy has some idea, I think, how to handle this material. Uh, and so I feel glad about that because they're directors that if it wound up in their hands, I'd be like, I'd be just doing a rant about it on a daily basis on some social media platform or another. I can't sometimes. I I'm not a big fan of remakes just because I feel most of them are poorly motivated.
Yeah.
Looking to cash in again. I mean, like they did the Texas Chainsaw film fairly recently that I did not like, and a lot of
I'm right
fans
there
did not
with you.
that happy about. And they're doing a sequel to that, of course.
Yeah. Yeah. They gotta get that money's worth.
Well, the point is, we're at a stage now where you and I, if there's another one that comes out, will probably check it out,
Yeah.
and they know that, and they don't really care if we like it.
Yeah. They just want those clicks, and sometimes when they do that, there's a movie that's really, really good. Like they could remake it and it could blow us away. You never know.
Look, my policy on remakes is because they're not, I think, motivated for the right reasons. Most of them are not going to be very good films.
Hmm
it's going to be very dependent on each case on the people who are doing the writing and directing more than anything else.
Yeah, I agree on that.
But I also feel that any film, any sequel to any movie, even if it's like the 30th sequel to something that's a piece of crap, could be a masterpiece if someone really wanted to put the effort into it.
Yep.
If it was worth it. I mean, you know.
Yeah, you got to
There are
have
a
good
lot of
creative
films that I don't
control.
think inspire great sequels.
Yeah. So I'm really excited because Ryan was releasing some, pre-production, prosthetics and
Right,
stuff,
yes,
and
yes.
it
I've
looks
posted that
so
stuff, yeah.
good. And another thing that's really cool is like the reason why we're talking right now, Frank, is because my friend Dean of the Dead, he did some hot sauce with Ryan.
I need to speak to him. I've been meaning to get back to him
Yes.
for like the past couple of months.
Yeah, and the
Because
thing is,
he
he was
proposed,
supposed to
he
be
said,
on
"How about
today.
Spookies hot sauce?" Well, no, how about a spooky cereal?
Yes. He's my best friend from the UK, and like we
Oh,
met
wonderful.
through this show. I actually have like his box right here that I'm always trying to get people to at least check him out because he's trying to get distribution over here in the US, and he was supposed to be on today, but his computer died on him. So because
Oh, I'm sorry. I would have liked to have talked to him.
I know I wanted him on too. I'm like, are you able to make it? He's like, dude, my computer just died. I'm like, shit. I'm like,
Oh,
okay, but no, we'll get it all set up and whatnot, and then get it rolling because Dean's a really really good guy, and like I thank him a lot. And this interview, I don't know, it would have happened if Dean didn't tell me
okay, well,
about you,
that's
Frank.
excellent. No, because what I've so much enjoyed about this, I don't know, it's like my renaissance or whatever the hell it is. First of all, I should explain two things. I had two partners on Spookies, Tom and Brendan,
Yep.
who did the job as co-director. Um, Tom passed away in 2017, and I sort of never recovered from that because we were continuing to work together, collaborate, write together. We were always each other's best go-to get an opinion or a criticism or some help with something. And I've met very few people that I feel were as talented as Tom because he was also an artist. He could draw, paint, a musician. I mean, he thought very thoroughly about things creatively, and so he would always come up with ideas that would make me sit back and go, "Oh my God, that's fucking great," again and again. And I'm so used to working with people that I have to sort of nudge along and get them to aim a little higher when I'm working with somebody. But so I mean, I I, I feel that I'm sort of frustrated by the fact that Tom did not get to be a part of this.
Yeah.
He really deserved it and needed it because it took me, like, after a while I started to, like, just by what I was seeing on the internet in its earlier days, I started to think, oh wow, people talking about Spookies fairly frequently, that a lot of people seem to really like it. They recognize the fact that despite anything, they would at least have to admit the effects are good.
Yes.
And Tom was just so soured on the whole thing because he, probably more than any of us, felt so assaulted by what had happened to the film because Tom was, like, a perfectionist. I feel he succeeded and got exactly what he wanted for some of the scenes in the film, but they now don't exist in any way close to what they actually were. But he was really down on it. I mean, he was down on the film, he was down on himself, and he at one point I tried to say, look, there's talk about this. There's a guy here saying that at this convention that there was nothing going on except conversations about Spookies, and everyone was talking about Spookies, and there's a growing cult. And Tom was like, there's no growing cult. I
Oh
don't
man.
fucking believe that. He, at one point, somebody told him that Quentin Tarantino loved Spookies, and Tom went like nuts. He's going. I'll eat my head if Quentin Tarantino has seen Spookies.
Oh man.
My
Yeah.
guess is he very likely has.
Oh, I'm sure he has. I feel like he's seen almost everything. To be honest, like he's
No, but that's
always
the
at
kind of
the
thing that
cinema.
I would think he would probably have seen.
Mm. But that is really sad to hear that he wasn't able to see any of this stuff
Oh,
or
he did.
just
It was we before the Blu-ray was released by Vinegar Syndrome.
yeah.
We had attempted for a few years to try and find the current rights holder and see if we could somehow We thought we could do a Kickstarter or something, raise money, get enough together to buy the rights and release it ourselves.
Hmm.
Except that there was no clear path, because every bit of information there was on it was inaccurate or misleading, and it traveled from company to company, as many films do. And at one time, Vestron Video, which released Street Trash, and they had been approached about Spookies, but they turned it down. They did, however, distribute it internationally, like overseas.
Okay.
And at one point, in the '90s, they owned the rights to it for a while. But then it went into other hands, and we weren't sure. And eventually, we tracked it down to our original backer, who had gotten rights back, apparently. And we sort of realized, well, all right, he's not going to sell us the film.
Hmm. Yeah.
So we didn't really have a direction to go in. But within a couple of years, I mean, Vinegar Syndrome really finally made the leap and did a beautiful restoration.
So
It
it
looks
really
so
is.
good. It's like better than I remember the film being on a big screen. So no complaints there. I I just didn't expect it to have this much impact on myself, and the fact that it's opened some new doors and opportunities for me. And I'm thrilled about that, because myself and Tom, as I said, kept working together for years. We
Yeah.
never stopped wanting to make films, for like literally not for a minute. I mean, we'd occasionally try to stop, but we realized it's like, all right, even if we make a pact and decide to go in a totally different direction and have like actual lives and jobs and careers, we'll be thinking about this almost immediately and want to be doing it.
Yeah, that's actually a good thing though. You guys had that drive, and you still have that drive. Like you just say, you're always
Right, and
writing.
I feel fortunate to have it, because at one time I said to Tom, I I know I'd be so much more successful if I wasn't so fucking cynical. And Tom looked at me like, "Well, what are you talking about? Cynical? You're like one of the most optimistic people I've ever met. You failed and you failed and you failed, and you still want to do this."
Yeah, that's a good thing though. Like you're always trying to push yourself, and I feel like that's what's kind of happening now, and not even just like in the horror genre, but like other like independent filmmakers as well in any kind of genre. They're pushing themselves really hard,
Mm.
and it's a good thing because independent films is taking over, I think, and I think that's a good
I
thing.
think here's the thing. I don't know if it's taking over, but it's gaining some of the ground that I think studios are losing right now. Meaning that, uh, I mean, I don't know about you, but I mean, years ago when I wanted to know what movies were playing, I used to go to newspapers, right?
Yep.
And the internet, and this is true more and more, now, right now, more than ever, the advertising that I see for upcoming films, it's like, all right, well, there's probably a trailer on YouTube, but you don't always come across it. And sometimes if you haven't heard something about, you don't know the film even exists.
Yep.
And I'll see ads on the IMDb, which I go to constantly, right? But they don't advertise on that many pages specifically that upcoming films. So frequently, like giant, major movies come out, and I heard about them a day and a half before or something like that.
Yes.
And I know that's got to be even more true of most people.
Yeah, that happens to me a lot because like a movie would come out and I'd be like, I only saw an ad for this like a day ago and it's out already. It's like what?
Yeah.
Like I don't
It's not
understand.
just out; it's streaming.
Yeah. And that's another thing too is like streaming services I think are really saving a lot of films, especially Spookies and Street Trash and movies of the like. It's
Yeah,
it's
yeah, yeah.
it's another reason why they're becoming cult classics and
Well, yeah, but
being
that's
rediscovered.
exactly what it is. It's availability, and it's different because, like you've had a certain amount of availability for years between VHS and video stores, and then DVDs, and then cable, and all this other stuff that gave you access to movies. But now they're at the point now where for like in recent years, the video distribution companies realized, all right, well, our biggest market's going to be streaming, and there's almost nobody who's going to buy discs except real collectors and people who love certain type movies or types of movies, and they're going to buy a lot of shit,
Yeah.
and that's what they do.
Yeah. Yep. And another thing I wanted to ask is your work with being a zombie in a George A. Romero film. How was that?
Oh, that was great. That was like such a good experience because I loved Night of the Living Dead was sort of a key horror movie for me. I mean, visually, it was sort of like, because the black and white had said, it was like a link to the older classic horror
Yeah.
films that had gone before. Plus, before I saw the film, I read Roger Ebert's article about it.
Oh no.
Are you familiar with Roger Ebert's article about it?
I've heard people talk about it. I haven't read it
It's
personally
basically
though.
him going into a tantrum
Yeah,
because this
that
film
sounds
was
right
shown,
about right.
because this film, and I mean, and I don't even know if this is true, but in the piece, he claims this is being like shown as a kiddie matinee.
Hmm.
Right. I mean, it's possible, but I don't know about that. But he goes on at length about how could anyone possibly, and goes on to describe how terrible the film is.
Yeah.
Right. And, by the time Dawn of the Dead came out, he was immediately declaring it a major classic.
Yeah, that sounds about right. Yep. That's that I don't know. It's actually really funny too. For some movies that we review and we go into Rotten Tomatoes, you can see like some reviews that are in there from him, and it's kind of funny. But I felt like later in his life, when he was doing stuff, that he became a little I don't know, easier on films. For what I was seeing in like other podcasts talking about him, and
I
like
think that may have been because, to tell the truth, there are a lot of critics who like their whole style of review is just to destroy films and
yeah,
filmmakers.
yeah, and that was definitely
That's what
something he
I
was
think.
doing.
You can tell by the way some of them write that's what they take pleasure in doing.
Yeah,
Um, I think he sort of, came to the point and the realization that, gee, this is something a lot of people are so passionate about, and these people are, for the most part, hopefully artists, and they're generally trying their best. And I think, in those cases, you need to save your scorn for certain producers, and maybe even sometimes directors who are just like I said about sequels, who are not doing it for anything but a cash grab.
yeah.
And and it's basically, to me, that's like a cynical approach to doing it. It's like, oh, I'm not doing this because I love movies, or I think the story's worth telling, or I'm gonna enjoy making this movie. I'm doing this so I can, make X amount of dollars, and then I can do a movie I want.
Yeah, and no, that now that you say that, it's, one director who's out there who I think does really good work is James Wan. With him
Mhm.
doing *Malignant*, like he did, sold so much with *Aquaman*. They're like, here you go do what
Right,
you want
right,
to do.
right.
And honestly, I think it's a great movie. I love *Malignant*.
I haven't seen it.
Oh, it's really really good. You need to check it out. Because it's such an
Yeah, I mean,
homage
there's
to so
to tell the
much.
truth, I try to stay current with things, but I watch like a wide variety of stuff.
Yeah,
So I'm usually catching up on older films, and then I'll usually, in some cases, I'll make a point to see the most like totally obscure stuff just because it intrigues me for one reason or another.
yeah, and that's the thing, is like there's so much out there. It's impossible to like watch everything. You want to try, like I'm like one of those people who's trying to watch a lot of things. Like there's been years I've missed with a lot of films, and I'm trying to catch up on those because
Right.
there's always new things coming out, especially with the streaming services. Like they're always pumping more and new things out for you to be like, watch this, watch this. So you're like, should I watch that, or should I go back and watch this thing that's like 10 years old?
Right, right, right. No, it's a problem, but it's a good problem
Yes.
compared to many. I think first of all, streaming is like, sort of winding down at this moment because they really peaked during the pandemic.
Yeah.
And now they're bitching because they're not making as much money, or in some cases losing money. Well,
Yep. Netflix.
what did you expect when people weren't home 24 hours a day?
Yeah, exactly. And I don't know. I hope that some of these streaming services will start putting a little bit more money into some of their stuff. Like I kind of lost my faith in Hulu. I was in Hulu a lot, but I feel like they kind of went like
Mhm.
way down um with some of like their shows and stuff. Like Netflix, really, I only go there to watch Stranger Things. And
Really?
yeah, I mean Netflix used to have a lot of really good stuff on there. But I haven't really found anything that
Well, I don't
caught
know, when
my
you say
eye.
used to, I don't know if you're talking like, last week or a decade ago.
Yeah, just in general, like for like I want to say the past like 3 or 4 years, that's like really all I went there for. But Shudder is like really taking over my life right now because of all of
Really?
the independent studios that they have in there, and a lot of low budget films
I mean,
and
I'm impressed that they can be a specialty channel
yeah.
and still have the ability to finance as much as they do.
Yeah, and you got Joe Obama in there, who's always bringing up these movies that a lot of people probably haven't heard of, and I know a lot of people saw Spookies and Street Trash for the first time through him,
Yes.
and that's
Yeah, I
another
mean, like I
thing.
said, I have to meet Joe Bob and shake his hand because the fact that he took those, and because I mean, he generally does stuff he personally likes.
Yeah,
Uh, it introduced the film to more people, each of those in in a shorter amount of time than anything in the past. And it's very interesting because Spookies has this, has gained this. I mean, Street Trash was pretty popular for many years, and it was easily available, and it was known. And Spookies, maybe people had heard of it. The majority of people had not seen it. Um, and plus there's the fact that I do, as I've told you, I due to the way things happen, the film was taken out of our hands,
yeah.
recut, new scenes inserted, etc. I totally sympathize with anybody who cannot like it, because I couldn't like it for many years, mostly due to my association with it and the fact that it was like saying, well, do you love your deformed, beaten to a pulp, almost alive baby?
Yeah.
I love it, but I don't want to hang out with it.
Yeah, yeah, exactly. That's a good way to put it. So I have one final thing I want to ask you is
Sure. And I'm going to have, and we can wait maybe till after we finish the interview proper. I want to ask you about something.
yeah, sure, sure. We can do it right on here as well. I just want to know. So I know you said you're writing and you're always trying to, I don't know, find something new for you to do and create. Do you have anything in the
Right.
work right now that you want to talk about
Funny
that
you should ask. Well, I mean, in addition to the fact that Street Trash is getting remade,
yes,
right?
I'm
And
excited.
I'm excited about that. Uh, I have been see originally when my partner Tom and I were trying to get rights ourselves and see if we could put the film out on a Blu-ray disc. Our plan was sort of like fairly long ranging, meaning that all right, if we can get this far, if we can just get it out there and get it known again and get some hype around it, we can get money, and we can do something that's a sequel, except it will be like the anti-sequel. It will be something so
Interesting.
vastly better and different that we and he wrote and this is back in like 2013. We were talking about this the first time,
Oh
and
wow.
Tom wrote like we talked about it, and then like boom, suddenly he had like 10 pages of notes and stuff he had written, and I was like, well, this could be really good. I like this, etc. And we never really picked on it up on it since then. But then Spookies came out on Blu-ray. It's gotten a lot of attention worldwide that it never had a chance at before, and people want a sequel. We're getting a real good response anytime I mention a sequel.
Yeah.
So that is exclusively what I'm working on at the moment. I mean, not exclusively, but primarily. And I think I don't even want. I need to be more modest because I'm really happy with the script, and I think it's going to be something totally like wonderful.
Yeah.
Uh, if it continues the way it's going. But it really, I mean, Tom and I, even back then when we talked about maybe if we ever did a sequel someday, we didn't want to do another Spookies. We didn't want to do a film like this. We didn't, even if somebody said, well, this time you can have $50 million to make Spookies. It's like I'd find a way to get the 50 million, and then I would like change my name and turn up in another country.
There you go.
But we wanted, because Tom was really, he's just talented. I mean, I've always aspired to do the best that I can possibly do, and I work really hard.
Mm,
I want what I do to be as entertaining and engaging as all fuck. I want it. And this went for Tom too. We have very specific ways that we want to be able to do things. Just ideas for visuals, ideas for virtually everything. Plus, we were a lot of directors that even top directors I've worked with and that are in some cases pretty famous, don't really they don't know that much about aspects of film
mm-hmm.
beyond what they do.
Yeah.
Uh, so that like all the design people, all the technicians, etc., a lot of the way their film turns out is really incredibly dependent on those people because the director has not really come up with visual concepts, does not know how they want a makeup or a monster look or whatever. But in working with Tom, he always, would align with me, and we'd really think out and discuss every aspect of everything. Because as far as I'm concerned, the difference between something good and great is really a matter of like detail and orchestration.
Yeah, I
If that
agree on
makes
that.
sense.
Yeah. So that's good that you were both working to like the best of your ability and trying to always push that.
Yeah, and I'll tell you, the secret is that the script is almost finished. I'm still going over parts of it before I really want to get it out there. I've had some people talk to me already about possible
That's awesome.
financing, but yeah, I don't. I'm so used in the past to having like 8 billion conversations about financing, and none of them ever go anywhere.
Yeah.
So I just sort of just take that for granted. I mean, I'm right now happy just to be able to be doing it, to feel that it's good, and to know that there are people out there who are waiting to see
Yeah.
this. And that's the crucial difference in terms of a lot of my mindset right now. It's not just that because for years Tom and I would like labor on things, and we'd like at times realize, oh well, we're like the only two people in the world who even have a clue that we're doing this or care.
Yeah. And another thing too, like you're talking about like funding, like I feel like it's way easier for filmmakers or anybody in arts to get funding. All you gotta do is get an Indiegogo, and
Right, but you can only make up to a certain amount come together usually on an
yeah.
Indiegogo. And there have been a few films, say, but very few, over say $1 million. But even some well-known names have tried to raise money and failed completely for
Hmm.
films. So there's a lot of elements to it. It's not like raising a Hollywood budget or something, but that's true. And in a lot of cases, especially if you're doing something sort of on the lower end of the scale,
Yeah.
and especially for people doing like low-budget horror films, because the horror community is and always has been the most enthusiastic bunch of film fans that there are just about.
Yeah.
Uh, it's so, and it took so long for the film industry and for Hollywood to realize that. There was a time. I mean, they did catch on like a couple of decades ago, really, but there was a time when like people did like horror and comic book conventions, and like they were like lepers basically.
Hmm.
The studios didn't care about this; they didn't even want to be associated with it.
Yeah.
And then eventually they became the main things the studio promotions are the biggest things you'll see at most conventions.
Yeah, and that's another thing too is like you don't see like like drama conventions, like horror conventions, or
You might see something that brings together like certain actors that
yeah.
specialize in drama. You might see people get together because they love a specific actor or a specific film. But for the most part, I mean, as far as genre goes, it's the imaginative genres. I mean, horror, sci-fi, and fantasy, which all
Yeah.
sort of intertwine. And I don't know if what the real connection there is, like why these people are so enthused, but I think things with a quality of imagination to them that capture people's imagination, I think they inspire greater devotion and interest.
Yeah. Yeah. I think that's probably the best way to put that. Um yeah. And I think that's all that I have for my questions, Frank. I know that you wanted to ask me something, so I'm actually
Yeah,
very
and maybe, I
intrigued.
mean, I don't know if you can answer all this right now, but one of the things I have so many things I'm trying to do right now. I'm trying to finish this script. I fortunately I have a couple of guys that have been in touch with me that I met online that are now working with me to get things moving, and I think will be very effective in a lot of this
That's
in the
awesome.
future. And they're fans, and this is part of what I want to do in this follow up to Spookies that I have mentioned, is I want to, because I've realized so many people who are fans of my films are people who are in the industry now. They got inspired, and now they're effects artists, or they're camera people, or they're actors, or whatever. And so I do want to make an effort for fans with real interest and passion to be involved. Especially if they have a talent that I'm going to be looking for anyway.
Yeah.
I mean, because to me that would be like such a I mean, and it's really just something I almost like crave at this moment, is just to be able to walk out and everybody there is like already enthused about what they're doing before you
Yeah.
even on the first shot.
Yeah. Yeah, that would be awesome. Yeah.
Yeah, and it can happen. And I've been incredibly grateful for fans. I mean, the people that have gone out of their way to let me know that they have enjoyed the films. Because I guess I went so long without it.
Mm-hmm.
I'm kind of adjusting to this kind of thing going on around me all the time, but it's taken a while. It's like for a while I didn't have quite as cynical an attitude, but when Tom said, I refuse to believe that Spookies is now a cult film.
Yeah.
Um, I still, in the back of my mind, it's like there's still this like thought that like, how can you? Are you serious? This can't be real.
Yeah. Well, it definitely is, and
I know. I accept it.
and I can't wait to see everything else that you're doing, especially for the sequel. Because actually, I think Dean was telling me, because he was talking to you prior, and he was like, "Yeah, I think he's writing the sequel to Spookies." I'm just like, "What?" Like, I gotta get Frank on the show. I gotta get Frank on the show. So
Yeah, and I gotta tell you, it's like I'm not gonna tell. I'm very satisfied with it so far, and the few people that have read it have had nothing but the highest degree of good response, and I think it's the intent, and this goes back to Tom coming up with most of the original idea. It we just we want to impress everybody that may have thought Spookies wasn't a great film, to the extent that they're going to be they may refuse to believe that this is something by the same people.
Oh yeah, I can't wait. Just you saying that. Oh, I mean, I love
Well, I mean,
Spookies
look,
as it
I know,
is.
I appreciate the fact
Yeah.
that so many people love Spooky for all its flaws or because of its flaws. Um, but it didn't let us. I mean, as Tom used to say, he said, well, all right, if the film sucked, then it sucked, and we could take responsibility and admit that it sucked.
Yeah.
But it's not our film. I mean, what do you say? How do you resolve that?
Exactly. Yeah. Yeah. That's a tricky one. Um, and this was super fun, Frank. I mean, thank you for
Wonderful.
taking some time out of your writing schedule and whatnot. And also very sorry for the
I,
couple of times we had to
don't
reschedule.
worry about it. I mean, like I said, it's so much easier to do this from home
Yeah.
than if I had to to travel anywhere. I mean, right now, if we did not have the internet, this is the kind of thing that would probably be getting done on like a local radio or television
Yeah.
station, or I'd have to travel to New York City. I'd have to stay overnight at a hotel. I mean, it would just like get very involved.
Yeah.
And I'm not that famous that like I think that's a cheap affair. Uh, so I'm just I'm thrilled to be able to like talk to guys like you. And you did a very good job, by the way. You were very good.
Thank you.
You
Thank
brought
you.
me out. You made me interested in you, and your opinions were good. And that's part of the fun that I have. I'm like connecting with so many people because I'm just a fan, like so many other
Mm.
men and women are who they have a passionate enthusiasm for certain films. It's not I mean the general public has always liked movies, but and the thing is too, back when I was like a junior nerd just starting out and getting into all this stuff, back then it had not mainstreamed the way that it has now to a great extent, so that at least even like regular people can sort of get into some of this stuff or accept
Yeah.
that people are so interested in it. But when I was like a kid and like reading science fiction and shit, I was like, I was ostracized, not like overtly, but it was just sort of like, I mean, I remember Tommy Starpoli in like the eighth grade coming up to me. He's like, "You're always reading them books. Why are you always reading them books?"
Yeah. Yeah. And now, like, you people thrive for being, quote unquote outcasts and stuff, because they know they have people that are just like them, and definitely times have changed. And I think for that, times
Yeah,
have changed for the better. I mean,
it's so
people.
much easier to connect with
Yeah,
people. Like
exactly.
and I look for, I mean, I like weird and different people. It's like when someone has an interest that I may not have, but has, but is like an expert or has, is passionate about it, I want to know about it. That makes me interested.
Yeah, exactly. And that's how kind of I am too, especially doing the show. I have to, be excited for the, people I'm talking to or the
Right,
movies
right.
I'm reviewing. Like if I feel like if I came on here and we were talking and I was just like, yeah, you're just on my show. That's really cool. Not having kind of interest. It would be stupid, be boring. None of us would want to be here.
Right,
And
yeah.
and
Yeah.
it's such an honor to talk to you and
Thank you.
really kind of go through everything that happened with Street Trash and Spookies and what's going on now and really hearing from you.
I mean,
So
to tell the truth, I mean, what's going on now and the fact that I have people who will like pay attention to me or care about what I might do now is it's just a night and day difference compared to, I mean,
Yeah.
Tom and I just labored in darkness for years, and occasionally we'd make a breakthrough or something would almost get financed or whatever, but it was it was a very fruitless endeavor for a long time,
Yeah.
after Spookies and Street Trash.
Yeah, and it's so good to hear too that you're kind of carrying on like really his legacy and your legacy at the same
I'm
time.
trying so hard. I'm still in touch. His wife is still a good friend of mine.
That's
I
awesome.
want to bring her onto the new film as one of our design people. She was one of the
Oh wow,
designers
yeah,
in
that's awesome.
Spookies, and she afterwards she got into CGI. She worked on like the first TV version of Dune, and like
Oh
and she
wow.
did a lot of like fairly big production stuff. Um, but it's a thing where I sort of carry my memories of Tom and his aesthetics in my heart to some degree. So I feel, I do feel at times, not that he's looking over my shoulder,
Hmm.
but at times I try to think, what might he think, or what might he bring to something? Because there are definitely things that I'm not going to come up with that he would have had he had the opportunity.
Yeah, but I know it's gonna be great, and it's something that he would love. I mean,
Oh, I
everybody
think
loves the
so. I
stuff
mean, from
anyway.
the start, we just decided, all right, we want to do something totally unlike Spookies.
Yeah.
You know, and he said something at first like, "All right, this should be like Spookies if Terry Gilliam made it."
Oh man, I can't wait. I really can't. Like, there's so many good things coming out in the works. Like, I really can't wait for the remake of Street Trash. It's gonna be great. And now Spookies 2. And just anything else that you're involved with. Like, I'm gonna keep my eye out. And
Yeah, I mean, I'm trying. My biggest problem at the moment is I'm really strapped for time all the time because
that's the
I'm
thing,
writing
isn't
the
it?
script. I have lots of other stuff I want to get to. I want to start, and this is one of the things I want to talk to you about. I mean, one of the things I have sort of had conversations about and have been aware of for a while is I want to get some merchandising going for I want to get out to conventions.
Yes. No, that's actually. I'm glad you just said that because that was
Okay,
something
that's
I
the main thing
didn't
I wanted
write
to
down.
talk to you about.
Yes, 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 yes. So that yeah, we can definitely make that happen. I think. Um,
Yeah, I mean, if
it,
you want, we can save this for another conversation because I think there's more to it than just a brief.
yeah, yeah, yeah. We can
But
talk to us
I
after
have
we're
put.
done if you want.
I mean, with COVID, like a lot of people, I just kept putting off and putting off starting to do conventions,
Yep.
and now I've decided to, and I have some people working with me, so I have somebody who's like really trying to comb the country for what makes sense to go to,
Yes.
and sort of some sort of a plan. But I have probably not been to a horror or comic book or any convention in like a decade, right?
Yeah.
And I don't want to go out there and like totally blow it or go someplace where, oh, well, my fans just don't happen to exist at this convention or
Yeah.
something. So I'm
Um.
trying to figure out what to do. I need to go out and like, if nothing else, minimally, because I'm going to be putting out, expenses for everything, including materials, stuff to be autographed, and
Yeah.
on and on.
I think I might
I
have
need to be able
one.
to survive financially if I totally fuck up.
There's definitely one that I can get you into contact with the creator and director of that I think would be really cool. Is the
Hmm.
Salem Horror Fest. It's mainly like a
Oh,
film
yeah, I've heard of it.
fest,
Yeah, yeah.
but next year it's the biggest it's ever been, and it's going to be in April. And I can get you into contact with Kay Lynch. She's amazing. She's actually a friend of the show, and we've talked, and I've been there for a while. So that's definitely one that even Dean's trying to get into right now too. So it'd be really
Right.
fucking cool if like you do go and make something with Dean, and you guys get partnered, and you have like a booth there or something, and selling your merch, and like talking about what's going
Yeah,
on
no, I
now.
mean,
That
I've
would be
had quite a number
awesome.
of people like demanding for a couple of years at this point that I become available to them so I can sign their Dawn of the Dead poster or whatever. And at the same time, it's like I've really made every effort to reach out to fans. If like anybody, I'll talk to almost anybody who wants to start a conversation with me on Facebook. But I've realized how much that means to a lot of people.
Yeah,
It's actually like, all right, here the connection with somebody, a creator that did something that meant something to you, is a big deal.
yeah, it is, and that's why I love going to conventions. But well, I'm definitely gonna try to get you into Salem Horror
All right,
Fest.
could we have another conversation about this
Yes.
maybe? Because I want
Yeah.
to get your like some feedback from you.
Yeah.
Because I'm just trying to
Exactly.
figure the route to go in terms of, like being able to go there equipped with the right kind of merch.
Yeah.
I mean, I'll be bringing like copies of Spookies, for
Yes.
instance, to sell an autograph and that sort of thing.
Yes.
Uh, I mean, like we did like when we did when Vinegar Syndrome did their release of Spookies, we went to there was a signing event at their headquarters,
Oh, that's
right?
awesome.
And a lot of people showed up. It was like a nice thing. It was like it sort of launched off this whole thing and gave me a sense of like, wow, people care.
Yeah.
Uh, but I want to really be able to expand beyond
Yes.
that
Yeah. We'll
and sort
definitely
of
talk
take advantage
after
of what there is there.
after this. We can end it right now, and we can actually do a little bit of talking and whatnot. Because
Okay.
uh, yeah, let's do that. So I'm done with all my questions. I think you were pretty satisfied today, and I'm really satisfied and super happy to have talked to you. And
Yeah, I mean,
actually,
just like just for your own head, man. Like you should know that you brought like stuff out of me, which not every interviewer can do. Like some people ask questions and they're terrible questions, and then I have to sort of figure out how to say something interesting.
I
Or in the
appreciate
cases
that.
where people know like almost zero about me and have not seen one or both of the films I usually talk about, it's awkward because too many people now who are media personalities on the internet don't understand that. Yeah, you have to like actually prepare for these things and have some
Yeah.
clue what you're doing.
Yeah, I do a lot of research. I try to anyway on all the interviews. I feel like going in there blind is just not it's not a good idea. So I'm glad that you had a good time, and we will continue this right after we're done with this. So
Okay.
this was the Barrens Hideout podcast. I was your host Dustin, and now is Frank Farrell. Uh, you
Yes, I'm
know,
here too.
yeah. So thank you for being here and
I had a great
chatting
time.
away.
I would definitely come back.
Right, awesome. And you know what? I always extend the invitation too to ever just want to come on and talk about a movie. We always
Okay.
do that. So
All right, that's interesting.
we can always sort that out and get it for maybe later this year or whatnot. So this was super fun,
All right,
Frank. Thank
that
you
would be
so
nice.
much for being here.
Okay.
I really
Thank
do
you.
I really do appreciate it.
All right. I'll see you soon.
Yes.